Well, welcome everyone to the Municipal of Meaford's community chat on the official plan update. As we're kind of getting set up for the activity this evening, you'll see that we've muted everyone. So that's to manage the kind of the background noise, as I was saying, when we're all in this virtual room. In the breakout sessions that we're have coming up, and as part of the kind of closing portion, when we all come back together, we'll have opportunities to ask questions on screen. So we're recording today's session. So if you do not want to be part of that, you're welcome to shut off your camera, as is anyone that's having issues with online bandwidth, or if you find it easier to follow without the camera on. We are going to have some presentations where people will be sharing their screens anyway. So with that, kind of jump right into the materials we're covering today. I'll introduce myself to everyone officially. So my name is Robert Voigt. I'm the Director of Development Services, which is made up of the planning, building, and municipal enforcement divisions of the municipality. Well, actually, it's interesting enough, Friday will be my 100th working day here at the municipality. So I'm an old hat now, but I've been a professional planner for over 27 years in public, private, and nonprofit sector organizations, including municipal governance, consulting, and the development world as well in Canada and the US. And I spent 17 years of that on the municipal side of planning. So beyond just the municipal staff, including myself that are present, we have an excellent team of experts presenting and facilitating our discussion today in this virtual space. So I will let them introduce themselves when they're on screen so that we don't need to kind of bounce around and see who's who. But I would like to note that with us this evening are the municipality's consultants from NPG and a group of master's students from Ryerson University that are led by Samantha Biglieri, Dr. Samantha Biglieri. So we've also a few of our counselors in attendance, as I see. They're here to listen to our conversations, but in the spirit of avoiding any kind of perceived conflict of quorum or conducting municipal business, they will not be actively participating. So this meeting is for Meaford citizens to come together to learn about and explore their ideas relating to the official plan update. If you do find yourself in a breakout room with the counselors, please respect their role as observers. Try not to pepper them with all kinds of questions and engage them directly. It just makes it a little difficult for what their role is here today. In terms of the overall agenda, this evening, NPG will be discussing the official plan update in terms of its purpose, the preliminary results from the online questionnaire that just finished running a couple weeks ago, and an overview of the upcoming workshops that they will be leading. Then we're going to shift into some breakout room sessions led by the Ryerson team. These will focus on themes of housing, complete communities, access, and community character. After these sessions, we'll join again in this same virtual meeting room we're in now and share some of the findings and discuss those, and then we'll be responding to questions. At any point in time throughout this, if you feel that you've got a question that you'd like to make note of or have an idea or something you'd like to share, please put it in the chat. And then when we're in the final session, we'll probably do something where we ask people to either raise their hand on camera like that or click the raise hand button so we can kind of keep track of that. You will have those opportunities to participate in the breakout room sessions directly. And that's when we'll unmute everyone so that we can speak directly with each other with less confusion. So this evening, we're here to launch, or actually relaunch, our discussions about the future of the municipality of Meaford through the official plan update. The official plan describes the vision for Meaford and the policies for how the community will manage change and evolve over time. So now that we know why the municipality is hosting this meeting, I'll ask if everyone can just take a quick second thought to yourself and take a moment and reflect on what each of you would like to get out of today's session to consider it a success or worthwhile for your time. So What is it that brought you here, and what are you thinking that would be a success for that effort you've put into it? And then I'll also ask you to think to yourself, what kind of personal gifts or skills or ideas or insights you feel you bring to our session that will help achieve that success. So what are the kinds of things that you can help drive that success for yourself as well as others? With that in mind, we hope to be able to have a really productive set of conversations this evening. So the official plan is a technical document that provides the framework directed by the Planning Act for our vision of the community for the coming years. So once the updated official plan is adopted, it will guide the municipality in its land use management moving forward. And an official plan is always a forward-looking policy document. That's important to remember. It does not reach into the past or retroactively apply to anything that's currently underway. And so with the idea of that future mindset and what we bring to the table, we need to consider that we're stewards of the community for this time, as others were in times before us. We have a rich history in this community, and now this is our time to help guide its future. So it can be helpful to consider how we are approaching our conversations and the ideas we bring to life as official plan policies. We need to remember not to get lost in the technical details kind of right away, and consider the fundamental range of important functions communities have on our lives. That's keeping us healthy, supporting local jobs, raising our families, co-creating care, social connections and cohesion, keeping us safe and active participants in community, and protecting our small part of the planet. So today's discussion, questions, and insights are just one of the many ways persons can get involved in this process. We're also coming together today in community to explore our understanding about who and how we might welcome other persons from our community into this process that aren't here now. This entire series of events and community consultation that we're undertaking now are interconnected and somewhat iterative. And that's important to remember. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for people to participate. The online questionnaire was one, this meeting is another, and there's close to another 20 meetings coming up. The next round of meetings will be held with the municipality's advisory committees, as well as workshops run by MPG, which you're going to learn about shortly. The municipality's website has a specific page for the OP update, which is important to remember. And that is the page and the only source of the original information on this project. So any information discussed here and any other meetings will be found there moving forward. So for this community consultation stage of the project, there are multiple and varied ways of participating, with opportunities for people that have joined together as formal or informal groups, as well as those that wish to just share their insights as individual citizens. Once I'm just done describing these things, I'm going to be dropping a series of sort of one-page graphics into the chat. So for those of you that would like to look at some of the information I'm talking about now, you'll see those pop up in there and you can download them from that. This exact same information is either currently on the website or is in the process of being uploaded to that. So the community consultation has a series of steps. There's the calibration step, which is about outreach and refining parameters and setting the event schedule. Then we go into discovery and level setting, which is essentially what this is. It's exploration of perspectives, dialogue on issues and insights. And then we go into collaboration and ideation. And that's those in-community workshops, workshops with the consultants from NPG, as well as the workshops with the advisory committees. And then with that, we have opportunity for framing, dialogue, and solving for potential new or refined policy direction. And then the last step is that refinement and confirmation, where we take the final policy, check it through the community, and then present that to council for dialogue and adoption. The meetings, essentially, as I just described, are being held all the way up until June. So we're in a very active phase now. So starting next week, we begin with the Parks Advisory Committee, and then in this order is how they will be presented to the various other committees and associated groups. So it's the parks, then it's a BIA workshop, the Wellbeing Advisory Committee, Accessibility Advisory Committee, Heritage Advisory Committee, and then Economic Development Advisory Committee. That's all of March and into April. Throughout April, there will be 4 different meetings with the NPG group, and they'll explain what those are shortly. And then in that same order, as I just mentioned, in May and June, we'll have a second workshop with all those advisory committees where we refine the policy direction that they've come up with. So as representatives of the community, the advisory committees will be documenting their comments and ideas on the official plan, and they'll also be having discussions with community citizens that will provide insights into their policy recommendations. So each advisory committee will do this work across about 10 weeks, right? So there's that one series of meetings in 1 month, they have a gap month, and then they meet again a month later. So that gets you your 10-week time frame with about 4 weeks of developing their own recommendations and those in-community conversations, right? And so with that, they're going to make sure that the first meeting will agree on the scope and the timing of all that. Then they'll go into having those conversations and collecting their ideas. And then we'll review those themes and sort and rank those concepts, and then have policy recommendations that come out of each of those advisory committees. We're also working with what I've referred to as community connectors. You may have seen the call for that we put on the website as well as on our social media site. The community connectors are citizens that have volunteered to engage their network of friends and associations to have conversations about the official plan and sort of gain insights that way. This allows us to bridge that associational life and the relationships that people have on a personal level with the institutional relationship that they have with the municipality, right? So it allows us to get greater feedback into the community without us having to be the facilitator of it and having that filter. And so that gives the overview of all the activity that's happening in terms of the community consultation for the official plan update. I'm going to now turn it over to Mary Lou Tanner from NPG to introduce herself and her team and provide an overview of the official plan update, its purpose, those preliminary results from the online questionnaire, and then that introduction to the upcoming workshops. And while she's doing that, I will drop some of those files I was telling you into the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Rob. And joining me this evening is my colleague, Lee Ching Lim from NPG. So we are a planning consulting firm. We have offices in Niagara Falls and in Hamilton. And we do work in and around Southern Ontario, in Lambton County, in London, Middlesex Centre, and Oshawa, into the GTA. But we are primarily focused in working in communities that are generally smaller communities. That's where our passion lies. And we do a lot of work as well in supporting farming and supporting agriculture, which is a personal and professional commitment of our firm. And being based in Niagara, you can, I hope, understand that there's a large farming community, both in the wine industry and in more traditional farming. And we're very pleased to support the agricultural industry. And we're also very, very pleased to be here this evening with you and to share some information on the official plan review. We are working with Municipality of Meaford to update their official plan. Municipalities are required to update their official plan every 10 years. And it is important to keep it current because there's always emerging issues, there's emerging opportunities, and there's the importance of having a check-in with the community to understand the community's perspective, because communities grow and change over time. There are newcomers to communities, there are people who've lived there a long time, and all of those perspectives are valued and welcomed. So we do have a few polling questions that we want to share with you. We're going to try this and hopefully it works. Li Ching is going to put the polling questions up. And we'll start with the first one, and it's a very simple question. Where do you live in Meaford? Do you live in the urban area or the rural? And you can just answer the question and let us know where you are, so we can get a sense of who's here this evening. Give it about another 10 seconds. We have 88% participation. All right, Lee-Ching, could you post the results, please? And here we go. Pretty evenly split between the urban area and the rural area. And we really welcome that, because we're getting diverse perspectives, which are so important to these conversations. I think we'll move to the next question, which is getting a sense of where people live within Meaford. So I'll get Lee-Ching to put this up. You get one choice. It is alphabetical, so it's A to J and then K to the end of the alphabet. Just give it another few seconds, and then we can share the result. And there is a comment, both questions are required. Forcing a choice in both sections. Yes, thank you for noting that. It is one of the peculiarities of Zoom polling. Okay, thank you. Can we share the results, please? So a good diverse group from across the community. Not surprisingly, majority of people live in Meaford, but good representation, as the first question showed us. Okay, we'll take this down and let's go to the next slide, please. So this is who we are. Lee-Ching's camera's not on, but mine is. I am principal planner with NPG. I'm a planner who's worked actually most of my career has been working in municipalities across Niagara, Hamilton, Halton, Burlington. And I joined NPG just over 2 years ago. And we do, as I said, a lot of work for smaller communities. And we also work on a number of different development files. We do not represent any development applications in Meaford or in Grey County. Lee-Ching Lim is a planner with us. She joined us last summer after graduating from the University of Waterloo, and she has particular specialty in graphics and a lot of background on policy, which is what an official plan is, as well as development matters. Can we have the next slide, please? We're going to talk about the official plan, why we require an update, some of the main themes from the community survey, and I'll talk about the community survey a little bit later, and then some about the upcoming workshops. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Rob mentioned a lot about the official plan and what it is. You can think of it as a blueprint for the community, but it's actually much, much more than that, in my view. It's about aspirations for the community's future. It's about values and things that matter and things people really want to see and things people care about in the future of their community. It's about issues that people are seeing today. It's about what you care about for your children and your grandchildren. It's about the economy of the community, and it's about being stewards, as Rob said, of this small place on our planet. There are some requirements that the province of Ontario puts in place for municipalities, and many of them are listed on these slides. The first is preparing for growth to 2046, and there are parameters around that growth within a document I'll talk about in a little while. But it is a conversation about how and where Meaford should grow and how and where Meaford should not grow. And both of those issues are on the table, and they should be part of the conversation. The official plan is about economic growth and planning for jobs and housing, where that function is going to occur, whether it's in what's called a traditional industrial business park or in historic downtowns, how you manage commercial areas in smaller communities if they have them in some of those hamlets. It's also about supporting agriculture and tourism, both of which are a significant part of the economy in Meaford. The Government of Ontario has a strong agenda for supporting increasing housing. We are in perhaps the most challenging housing crisis we've been in, and the Ontario government has been very clear that all municipalities must come to the table to increase housing supply. And there's certain parameters the government has put in place, but there's also choices that municipalities get to make. And part of those choices is planning for where growth will occur and where it won't occur, but also how growth can shape important parts of the community, providing rental housing, providing housing options for people as they age in the community, providing housing above Main Street stores so that there's a consumer base for those businesses. Those are some of the choices that are important to housing, but there's certainly more. There's a significant component of the update dealing with natural heritage, which is things like creeks and forests and streams, wetlands, woodlands, shorelines, all of those components that define a community and are important community values in protecting and nurturing and being wise stewards of the landscape. More recently, there's been changes in Ontario around green energy, which was previously a provincial decision, and now it's a local decision. And of note, that local decision cannot be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And last, and probably one of the most important things in an official plan update is the council and community issues. So what's your experience in the community with the official plan? And you may not have participated in the past, but we're glad you're here tonight to share in this conversation and the coming conversations. But it's also about your hopes and dreams for the future of Meaford and what you really want us to address. We haven't prepared a draft of the official plan update. There are certain technical things we need to do, but truly these conversations are about shaping what that update finally looks like and bringing into that update the things that matter to you. Can we have the next slide, please? So official plans do a number of things. The first is they identify the policies and objectives to guide the physical development of land within Meaford. And that's a really, really, really important role that an official plan plays. What can go where, generally how big it can be, how much of it, and what you want to preserve and protect. Things like farmland, things like the natural heritage system that I talked about, the shoreline and the waterfront, and really being a wise steward and custodian of how and where development does occur. You want an official plan to provide some flexibility in policy interpretation, but you really want it to be providing direction during the decision-making process. So it needs to be written in clear language and plain language, so it is understood and you don't get into questions of, well, what did this really mean? And 10 years down the road, when the next official plan review is done, hopefully that will have been achieved in this update, and that's certainly one of our goals. There are other tools to implement the official plan in the planning process and in the legislation in Ontario. A zoning bylaw provides very detailed parameters of how development on a site will occur, whether it's your home or new commercial development in downtown Meaford, or where buildings go on a farm. Subdivision is the creation of lots to implement new housing, and it can implement industrial development. And site plan control is really about how and where the shape of buildings and parking spaces and landscaping and signs and lighting go on a particular site. But an official plan gets implemented through other means as well. The municipality's capital budget must align to the official plan. The heritage bylaws must align to the official plan, the sign bylaws, and on and on and on it goes. Where the parks are, all of these are really, really important decisions. So I hope you can see that the official plan really does shape the community's future. And it's really an important tool to talk about what you want, but also build in those policies and those things that really, really matter to you. Next slide, please. The document itself is comprised of text and mapping. So you can see that this map on the right is the official plan land use schedule, and it shows the area of Meaford itself. And it's got different colors to identify different land uses and where things can go. It includes objectives and policies to identify what the municipality is expecting, what council is expecting, and what the community is expecting. So you can see, for example, the green areas are natural heritage features, and you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but those are ribbons of streams and valleys and forested areas that are really important in defining the community character in terms of where development is and where it's not, and providing access to nature, which is critically important. An official plan also includes the road network mapping to ensure that there's access throughout the municipality and categorizing roads. And really good official plans also link not just identifying roads, but identifying active transportation, where trails are, where walking paths are, how people get around on foot, and where cycling is, and building in those components of cycling infrastructure, such as access to trailheads or bike parking, and all of those components that truly implement active transportation for pedestrians and cyclists and make the community more accessible for all. And an official plan does include some constraints mapping. You can see a little bit of it on here with the natural heritage features that I talked about. There may be other aspects of constraints that get identified locally, whether it's things you want to protect, like the Niagara Escarpment, or things where it's just really not a good idea to develop. So for example, a closed landfill site where you really want to stay away from it because it's just not the best neighbor for anyone. We'll go to the next slide, please. When we look at official plans in Ontario, it's important for us to share with you that the province of Ontario has set a very robust framework of requirements for municipalities. So the first is the provincial policy statement, and it sets requirements that all municipalities in Ontario must meet. There are components of it that deal with how and where to plan for growth, how and where to provide servicing infrastructure, which includes sewer, water, roads, and addressing stormwater. Addressing climate change is also within the provincial policy statement. Protecting agriculture, protecting natural heritage, ensuring that economic growth occurs in Ontario municipalities. And these policies all set the stage for what municipalities must address in their official plan. I mentioned earlier the government's commitment to housing supply, and throughout the last few years, there has been increasing attention to housing supply, starting with the government's Housing Supply Action Plan that was released almost 3 years ago, that contained provisions that are required to be placed in official plans, as well as municipal zoning bylaws. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner the Ontario housing crisis, and that came from the Housing Supply Action Plan in 2019. And although it is GTA focused, the Housing Supply Action Plan does apply across Ontario, and all municipalities are expected to play their part in increasing housing supply. Through 2019, 20, 21, even as recently as January 2022, there have been changes to the Planning Act in Ontario that require increased attention in an official plan for housing supply. Most recently, in January of this year, the Government of Ontario passed new legislation and put in place new opportunities to implement housing supply that we will be addressing in this official plan update. Can we go to the next slide, please? Rob mentioned that we had released a community survey, and it was released so people could provide input into some themes and ideas around Meaford's future. Almost 400 people responded to the survey, and we're very grateful for the input that we received, because it really does help us understand the priorities of people who are living here today and what they care about for the next 20 to 25 years in Meaford. I think it's important that we also understand that as you provide us this information, we take it and we look at the existing official plan and all of the requirements of the province and start to shape solutions that implement the priorities that you've set for us. So I'd say generally the first observation for me is that this is about a small town lifestyle with a great attention to quality of life. And you can see this in the things that people have mentioned: the rural lifestyle, access to green space, trails, and Georgian Bay. Those are key elements in that development blueprint framework that an official plan can and should address. There's a sense of community and belonging, and Rob talked about this community gathering tonight and over the next several months. And that's a critical component of addressing how we communicate with each other, how we share ideas, and how we start to build that sense of belonging and ownership of this official plan update. There's certainly a commitment to physical activity, recreational opportunities, and the importance of walkability and active transportation. And there are a lot of things we can do and will do in this update to address that. There's a custodianship, if I can say, of downtown Meaford, the heritage buildings, the streetscape, the stores, the proximity to Georgian Bay and the waterfront, and what all of that connectivity and that wonderful community space brings to people. And certainly it's tied to walkability and accessibility as well. They go hand in hand. You know, an active street is one where businesses thrive, and making sure that those places are walkable is critically important. We're going to talk tonight about some of the age-friendly and community social infrastructure, particularly with our colleagues from Ryerson University. But building an age-friendly community, if a community works for a child and it works for a senior, it's really going to work for everyone. And so putting that age-friendly lens on, making sure there's recreation, walkability, community access to services, that becomes really, really critical in framing the official plan and ensuring we have the policies to implement that. And finally, but not least by any means, is the importance of farming in the community. And this is not a surprise, and one we actually really strongly welcome and support. At the same time, we have a commitment and a need to implement climate change policies and ensure that we are being stewards of the landscape going forward into the next 25 years, and addressing climate change mitigation and adaptation, as well as looking at things like green infrastructure, which can be everything from ensuring setbacks and a buffer area along a stream or a creek, planting more trees, how we address stormwater and new development. That's all part of what we're going to look at in this update. Can I have the next slide, please? There's a lot of community engagement opportunities, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it and repeat what Rob said, but the most important thing we want to leave you with is we welcome your input. We really want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas, which we just captured in the community survey. There will be open houses and public meetings and events that be occurring, and we welcome you to attend. We are accessible to you. If you have questions or comments, we want to hear from you, and you can certainly access our information through our NPG Planning Solutions website or the municipality's website. And please be assured that your input will be seriously considered, and you will receive a response as part of our response document to all feedback. So you can provide written submissions, you can speak at a public meeting. We will be taking detailed notes so that we capture the ideas and thinking and questions and comments and concerns. Next slide, please. As Rob mentioned, we are going to be leading 4 upcoming workshops in the month of April, and they will be facilitated by our team and supported by Meaford staff. We will have workbooks that will be available in advance so people can understand what we're going to be talking about and do some advanced thinking if they choose to do so. So on April 12th, we're going to be talking about rural character and settlements. These workshops will be about 2 hours in total. On the 14th, we'll be talking about agricultural and rural lands. On the 19th, we're going to be speaking about downtown development and key public lands and the importance of those integrating pieces of defining downtown Meaford. And on the 21st, we're going to be talking about urban character and settlements. And we'll have a series of detailed workbooks, as I said, with some questions for you, so you can think about and provide us with your feedback on some of these really important issues for Meaford's future. That concludes my presentation. Thanks very much.
There we go. Now I'm back. Well, with that, the next step on our agenda right now is to turn it over to the group of Ryerson students. They're going to lead us for the next approximately hour of a series of breakout sessions. And so this is really looking at contemporary thinking around some of those things that Mary Lou just presented. So these breakout sessions are going to be on housing, complete communities, access, and community character. And so what will happen is that one of the moderators here will do some magic and flip some switches, and we will all be sent off into the various breakout rooms. You will then be able to participate by being unmuted, and you'll see the presentation and then go into the series of questions that the moderators are going to walk you through to get your insights on those particular issues. Each session will be somewhere between 13 and 15 minutes, and then we'll revolve and go into the other ones. So you'll each have a chance to participate in each of those 4 sessions. Again, if you have any questions or things that you'd like to make sure that we're discussing as we go further along in this evening's workshop, the chat is always available for that.
Thanks, Rob. Maybe I'll take it from here. Hi, everyone. As Rob introduced me a bit earlier, my name is Samantha Biglieri. I'm an assistant professor at the soon-to-be renamed Ryerson University. And with me are 6 fabulous master's students from a variety of backgrounds: engineering, transportation planning, geography, event planning, political science. And they're all working together in what we call client-based studio. So a hallmark of our program at Ryerson is that students during their time with us get to engage in working for a real-life client. And our real-life client is the municipality of Meaford. And the students have been working, doing research into how to make the official plan process the most accessible process possible. And today you're going to get the chance to meet each of these students as they will be running the different breakout rooms. So like Rob said, some magic is going to happen. You're going to get put into a breakout room. That's where you're going to stay for the remainder of the hour. And it's actually us as the co-hosts that are going to move around. And so if you have any issues, please feel free to stay in this main room, unmute, and you can ask questions. Rob, Lee Ching, and Mary Lou are going to remain in this main room. So if anything goes wrong, please feel free to stay here. And I'm going to work that magic right now and hope it works for us.